The Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper. And now, Coach Bill Clark.
Welcome in. It's the Coach Bill Clark Show, presented by Buffalo Rock Dr. Pepper. Landry Roberts, Molly Robinson, I'm Pat Smith, along with the coach, Coach Bill Clark, here for another 30-minute show. Welcome into the program. Coach, got to ask you, NFL draft of the weekend. The obvious question, what happened to Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we were talking about this last week. I think if you went back, if you want to go back and watch last week, we really delved into the volume of time spent at the school by multiple folks asking multiple background questions, especially of the quarterback position, which is the leader of the team. Multi-million dollars are going to be invested in this player. So I think the background checks, I'm not saying what was even found. I'm just saying this is all a part of the process. When guys get drafted, especially as they slip, and I've had it happen to one of my players, I think we mentioned it last week, but there's something that's come up, and usually it's come up across the league.
When all things are equal and you recruiting at the college level, you ever had a situation where it's a good player? And I think we all agree that Shedeur Sanders, he's a very talented individual. He's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
But all things being equal, have you ever said, this either there's personality or family or external things that, I just don't know if it's worth it. Have you had that?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
How does that go?
Yeah, and I think this is the point. It's what outweighs what. And I mentioned it last week. Where does talent and a problem that you foresee coming down the can I fix it? Is he fixable? Is he somebody that I can mold? He comes in. We had this tons of times with high school kids, really inflated egos. They've been told how great they are. They were great. They were the superstar. Can you get them to believe in the team and all these other things? I talked a lot about junior college players who had to become mercenaries. I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to go sell yourself. It's really not about the team. We want to win, but how do you get those people to change? And if I see that this guy's not changeable, moldable, fit my system, why would I recruit him? Now, granted, there's a coaching and there's those things that go into that. So I'm sure there was something in there, that they were seeing that did not fit what they wanted to deal with.
Was there ever a time, whether you're at Jacksonville State, UAB, even at South Alabama, to where maybe you took a kid where maybe attitude-wise it was questionable, but his talent was unquestionable?
Yep.
And you're like, you know what? We can try to mold that kid, and we can kind of get him to calm down and kind of buy into what we need for him to be.
Oh, mostly that.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Mostly that. Remember what I said? I had to go get a team of junior college guys. Mm-hmm. There was so many of those guys came from bad backgrounds. They'd only seen the junior college way, mercenary, not a lot of coaching, just not big coaching staffs, whatever that was. So, yeah, you were taking guys that needed mold and needed training. That, to me, is where this team and this family and this other group can take a guy like that. And the better that group is, the more you feel like I can take this one guy. But if it's a guy at a position that has to lead, and if that's what I'm questioning, once again, I think if the ability was so substantial, there would have been more people saying, all right, it's worth the – and I think what happened, a lot of guys said, look, this guy's going to be a backup. Well, if I think I'm picking a backup so if I'm picking you as a backup, I'm saying you're not starting.
Right.
We are picking him to not start immediately. If he's not going to start and we already say – the very thing I'm drafting for, which is to be a backup, he's going to have a problem with, or his dad, who is Hall of Famer, big megaphone, he's a college coach, and he's going to be blasting me from day one. Why would I want to invite that? Unless I really thought he could play, I really thought he was moldable. And you saw that where Cleveland probably said, okay, we got a bunch of quarterbacks. It's worth the risk because he is a talent. And it doesn't make you the worst people. This is such a competitive. There's so much research that's put into that. You are inviting a chance to blow it by the very things he's been doing.
I was told by somebody who played in the NFL, been around the NFL, but they said after a certain point, when it comes to quarterbacks in a draft, you might as well just take the rest of the names and jumble them up into a pot and do a blind draw. And so maybe it was a case of, all right, well, we've got Shuck here. This is what he does well. Then we've got Shedeur Sanders. You know what? We're going to go with Shuck because maybe he fits them better, or maybe it's just at the end of the day, do we want to deal with that? And his dad does have a big platform, and people listen to what his dad said. I thought it was very interesting. Chris Carter, who came out and had some very interesting and pointed comments, not only towards Shedeur Sanders and some of the things that apparently took place during the interview process, but also with Deion, and saying that Deion doesn't have it all figured out. So maybe it backfiring a little bit, where you would think Deion, being the great that he was at the NFL level, that they would embrace it a little bit more, but a lot of teams apparently didn't.
No, it played out exactly what I don't want to say supposed to happen. Guys, a lot of guys get passed up and they go. Remember, we talked about 2 stars that make it, lower round draft. So he's got every opportunity to make it. We talk, we can go Brett Favre, Tom Brady. The list goes on. So this can very well happen. What's happening now, though, there is so much scrutiny, and you take a high round draft choice, and I'm going to go way back. They were calling, they were checking, they were talking to the equipment man. That's been going on forever and ever and a day. And if you got negatives, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, and that's when the owner, and it gets to the owner, and he just says, hey, he's off the board. Whatever those things are, that's why it happens. Don't mean you can't make it out of it. Brett Favre, you saw what he said. You can definitely make it out of it, but this was I say it's a self-inflicted wound.
Going back to guys that you recruited at the college level that maybe had, and I realize there's some non-negotiables if there's something on their track record or something in their past, but some of it has to do with socioeconomic and a lot of, go into a lot of, like a Dr. Phil show of things that might have contributed to whatever that kid's background. I'm not saying that they don't deserve second chances, but if I ask you percentage-wise, I'm a young coach, I'm saying, hey, coach, I'm recruiting these guys. This guy's got questionable character. Here's the circumstances. This guy. Would you find it more often than not that you're able to mold that person, or percentages tell you that probably what you see is what you get?
It's according to how bad it is. I mean, I always felt like, people talk about walk-ons. Let's just use walk-ons. I loved our walk-on program because we were inserting guys into our program. Darius Williams was a walk-on. Darius Williams I found in the in the school. He had transferred there for a chance, but really that's a walk-on who gets put on scholarship. My point on that is these are high-character, work-hard kids that I've inserted in the program, and I then feel like I can go take a chance on some other guys because I'm surrounding them with these good people. But I'm looking at those. There's guys before I'm like, it would take a miracle. Now, I'm at UAB, and I want this guy who can really play. I feel like my culture, my team, my family can train this guy who is this really good time. I mean, you go look at the players I had and we had at UAB. We had some guys that were definitely NFL bodies, looked the part, and we went back in their history, whether it was not going to class or maybe an attitude. I felt like a lot of it was their background, how they had been trained, and I felt like we could fix a lot of that. So the difference here, they don't have to try and fix that. There's plenty to choose from. And now those guys are in 2-year windows at almost most. I remember Jody Wright, who's head coach at Murray State, coaching O-line for me, and he says, Coach, I'm going to the Cleveland Browns. And, you would be happy for one of your coaches going to go, get a pay raise from what I was paying him. I said, they fire those guys after a year. And he said, well, Coach, I got a 2-year contract. I said, it's guaranteed. He said, it is. I said, okay. They got fired the next year. Now Jody landed on his feet, went to other places. He's the head coach now and love him. I mean, he's part of the family. But that's not for long. GMs, head coaches, these draft choices are scrutinized to the hilt. So a lot of it makes sense to me. You see it coming, you saw it coming, and sometimes those very things, too, that make you a good player, this bravado and swagger and all that stuff. But, I don't want to deal with that, especially I'm putting you as a backup.
I want to ask you about Tyler Shuck, because here's an individual that's got a long history of injuries. He's played at a lot of different places. Mm-hmm. He was able to kind of put together a really nice season this last year for Louisville. Yep. He gets drafted ahead of Shedeur Sanders. Now you're weighing, okay, do I take a guy that's got physical limitations perhaps, or do I go with someone like Shedeur Sanders, which apparently he bombed every personnel interview he had with all the franchises?
Yeah, it's what I've heard. But to our quarterback at Louisville, I think it's somebody in there somewhere feels like he's well now. He's enough. He's got such talent that I'm willing to give it a chance. I've already got great people in front of him it doesn't hurt us to take this shot at this guy because he is a talent, and that's really how you get to these decisions. And I could tell you in recruiting for us at UAB, how many decisions, how many talks, how many. That's why I said the dossier before it became a bad word. I wanted to know everything you could tell me about this guy so I could make the right decision. And those guys, that's what they do. That's their job. That's what all the research is for. And especially the higher the draft choice, the more they spend on that, the lower they sometimes feel like they can take a chance.
Well, if you're the Saints, though, you only need Shuck for half a season because Derek Carr's only going to last half a season. Then you put Shuck in the second half of the season, and you've completed a regular season. Missed
That's
out on the
spoken
playoffs
like a
again.
New Orleans Saints fan, as my son is a big New Orleans Saints fan, and just when does the give up happen?
It's
of course,
win for Arch now.
Yes,
lose
that's right.
for Arch.
Lose for Arch.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad thought.
Get ready for
If
him.
if it's going to happen, that's going to be the guy.
55 years, Coach. This is a crazy stat. 55 years since the Saints took a quarterback in the first round. 55 years. 55 years ago, it was Archie Manning.
Right, the other Manning.
Isn't that crazy?
By the
Yeah,
way, and then going back to Shador and being taken by the Browns, should it surprise you? Not when you look at the entire list of Browns quarterbacks they've drafted since 1999, but Johnny Manziel. They took Johnny Football.
Yeah. Talking about a past and a history. Now,
They worried about that, were they?
well, look what he had done. I'm sure in their mind it was okay.
Yep.
But if you'd really done your research there, and those are the stories that say we're not doing it.
Yeah.
You go talent, did it in college, but hard to be a pro.
And it goes back to something you just said about taking a chance or the lottery ticket. We kept hearing those terms over the weekend with the Browns because the general manager had a press conference and he basically said, where we drafted him, there's really the return of investment can be very little based on what they're paying him.
Yeah, because the monies are set. The monies are set. So in their world, that's not a lot of money. It's not a risk. Why not?
He's making before taxes it would be it's not going to be a whole lot. It's basically $1 million a year, right? So if you're drafted at the end of the second round, I think you're slotted pre-tax $1.25 million, something like that. So he's going to get less than that. But I mean, you think about right now, maybe this is good for the college game because of what those guys are making on some of their NIL deals. Then they start weighing: do I go even though I'm a potential second round pick? If I fall to the third round, why don't I come back for a 6-year of college football and make millions?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're going to get the quality because they're staying in now because they can, and there's so much money there. I think we saw that in basketball this year. Mm-hmm. Now there's losses happening below, but other team guys are coming up. But you get those elite teams. Not that I love every bit of that, but when you talk about talent, I mean, look at those teams in the Final Four, how deep they are, and how many guys are playing because there's guys that are staying around. They're all loading up on these same teams because there's so much money invested.
And you just mentioned it. I mean, in regards to taking a chance. I mean, even Jalen Milroe. I mean, the general manager for the Seahawks. I mean, he was gave a press conference. He basically said the same thing. He was just like going, hey, look, you might not have been our number one quarterback on our board, but based on that slot Landrum was talking about, right. I mean, there's not that big of a risk. You're not talking about a first rounder.
Yeah, to me, there's the no-brainer. I mean, you're talking about a guy that can run like a deer. He's strong. He's big. Can he be a running back? Would he be a running back? I don't know, but he could do other things for sure.
What can Jalen Milroe, if you're putting him with your offensive staff, you've just drafted him, Coach.
Yeah.
They're in Seattle. You've seen him as a college player.
Yes.
Throughout his career. Are some of those things correctable?
I think so. I think some of them are. Now, I think if you can take him in and have him as a package – where he could still throw the ball. This is not just a running back going. He's a true thrower. When we're talking about the elite of the throwing and staying well. But to me, he'd be a great guy to have. And you run him in there, and he's fresh. He's healthy, and you get all the quarterback reads, the millions of ways there are to run quarterbacks, play actions, and all the throws. I'd take that guy in a heartbeat. It's just, are you having to count on him to be the starter?
Yeah,
but if he's a role guy, we talked about our guy at New Orleans. Now, they're different, but, you start talking about that's an added weapon and a great guy to come off the bench, a great guy to insert 5 to 10 snaps in a game. That's so hard to prepare for.
One thing's for sure, Smart Bank, a fine sponsor here at the BillClark Show, that's someone that you really don't have to think long and hard about because Smart Bank is where you need to go to do your banking.
Yeah, I'm really just telling people all the time now how great Smart Bank is because, we talk about just having all the amenities, but it's the people. The people there, they know the folks that come in. They got all the things you need at any big bank, but just really great folks, and they're going to know you when you come in.
Coach, most everyone is done with spring practice. It is in the books. Landrum had an opportunity to witness UAB's scrimmage over the weekend, Landrum, and I know you walked away with a more of a positive feel for this UAB football team for 2025.
Yeah, a lot of changes on the roster, and that's a lot of college football programs, but especially on the coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball, you've got a lot of NFL experience on that side of the ball and coaching. And for all intents and purposes, and selfishly, we talk about the spring games going away everywhere, and it's not just UAB, and they've been doing the spring showcase. But for me, professionally, I got more out of this than I would have watching the green face the white and having vanilla on both sides and not having that interaction. Your thoughts on this kind of format and how it could be maybe good for college football programs?
Yeah, I think one was the whole protecting your roster as much as you could, and UAB obviously purposely pushed all their stuff later, trying to protect them as much as they can. And I think trying to have things going on would be my theme. I want to keep them busy. I want to keep them engaged with their teammates. I want all those things. Heck, we would have been having pool parties, and I'm just being honest. Anything that I could do to keep them engaged from a family unit, especially when I don't have the big checkbook. So the format you're alluding to, you're saying it was a game or it was not a game?
No, I mean it was situational stuff.
More control.
It was more control.
Yeah. So one of the things we used to do on scrimmage days were always half of a scrimmage, ones on twos, threes on threes, but we do ones on twos, every kind of situation you could think. It was all scrimmage first half. Then the second half was good on good, total situations, third downs, red zone, goal line, coming out, 2 minute. So you got a little bit of mixture. You had the scrimmage. So all my scrimmages were like that prior to the last one. Then the last one we tried to make game like, which was really for the fans.
And personnel wise in the secondary, and that's where they beefed up. And they've got guys from the likes of Maryland, Boston College, and other places. And that's not only in the secondary, but a lot of different position groups. But body style, type, longer, more athletic, and you can tell that these guys, they played at big time programs. So
yeah, I've heard good things about the secondary. Not necessarily bad on anybody else, but I've heard good things on the secondary.
Going back to pushing that thing late, would you believe that you have – I know you would, but you've got coaches from other programs right now, coaches, not go-betweens, not, hey, I'm a G in the building, but actual coaches calling kids cell phones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's – I told you
for God and everybody to see.
Oh, yeah. A few weeks ago, Coach, I told you the story. Coach shows up at two players' house, non-portal kids. But, he's not smart enough not to even go to their house. He's at their house, gets videoed, he ends up getting fired, which is shocking in today's world that somebody but it was so egregious that I think they wanted to get rid of him anyway. But, there's so many stories, so many things going on. It's insane.
All right, so I know the calendar is different now. I know things are different because of the portal and things of that nature. But, okay, you're done with spring. Take us back, your final year at UAB.
Yeah.
What goes on from that point in time with you, your coaches? What happens with the throwing programs, things of that nature in the offseason?
Yeah, so let's do two things. Let's tell our story, then let's tell kind of where it's modified. So our story was the next week I want meetings. I want to talk about what was good, what was bad, what needs improving between now and when we play. Now when you come back from the summer, here's the things I want you to get better on. One of the big things for us, we got done earlier, so we had to create a Maymester where they would go to class. They had to take a class, and they could do it online, where they could actually get paid. It was a big thing I had to explain. If they're not getting and they modified that rule during COVID, but you had to be in a class to get paid. Well, most of these guys were living off campus, almost all of them, other than the freshmen, and they didn't have a class. They didn't get a scholarship check. So amazingly, I think they needed to be in a class. Now, what we would do, I would turn that into, you had to have a time in there that they didn't have to be workouts. So we turned it into voluntary workouts. We would have almost the whole team there, and we worked on things that would be better for the combine. Individual type. Now, they would throw, but it was all there. They were led on their own. June, it becomes mandatory 4 days a week. We got a lot done, a lot of skill work that was no balls on the field, and then they would bring the balls out, all very orchestrated, done well, and we would be ready come August. Now, here we are today's world. First, the portal's closed. Hopefully you survived, right? Whatever it is, you know what you need. Now you're looking at the highest number of portal kids ever. I'm sure y'all have talked about this on the show, where it started out at 1,000 and now it's at 4,500. So if you think kids aren't jumping in the portal, this is 4,500 or what it might be more people in the portal. So I need five things. I need 2 running backs. I need a receiver, whatever that is. Now, people that are in the portal, now that's what I'm doing. So I'm having recruiting going on right now, along with any spring recruiting that's going on. And my big deal was I kept the coordinators around because I wanted them to be there. We had guys finishing up. I wanted to be breaking down film, and then they went to special spots. The other guys were working, and then the coordinators I would send out to special spots. So, these guys are having to be hands on deck for these recruiting visits for the 5. Some people may need 15.
Yeah.
What do you need right now? That's what you're trying to do out of people that's in the portal right now. And then one last thing, they're able to do OTAs in the summer now, which are just practice. So a little bit different. You can get a lot more done, which does help as you get all these newcomers coming in.
Coach, the portal's never closed.
Yeah.
You just got to know where they have the key.
There you go.
There are staffs right now, I guarantee you, already working on poaching, tampering, who they're going to grab out of that December portal.
Sure.
Right?
Well, they have people. See, that's what you got to understand. You got a staff. I mean, when you say Clemson, Auburn, they got 100 people in the building. Well, what are these other non-coaches doing? And I still remember Dabo was one of the first guys where he had a guy at each position who was was getting their top 5 board. Of course, you get a lot of this from Saban and whatever, but I mean, you had a top 5 board, and as long as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. So I'd call you, Landrum. You got the corners, Pat. You got the safeties. You're talking to the corners coach. You're talking to the safeties coach. Now I go in there and ask you at any time. Mm-hmm. You're telling me everything there is to know about these top 5 players. Right. Everything. What they like, girlfriend. And now if something changes that, he's out. You still got his stuff, but you're looking at that top 5. So all these people in the building, they're doing something. They're looking at somebody, and they've got a board over here that's a Power 4 board. They've got a board over here that's non-Power 4 board. They got an FCS board. You see where I'm coming from? They've got all these people that they are looking at, and because of Pro Football Focus, everybody's getting rated. So every player now, and also they got a program now that I got everybody's cell phone. I got everybody's email. So I can get to him any way I want to. Oh, I probably know his head coach.
Yeah.
So the head coach, hey, coach, just so you know, we're going to be needing a corner.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody wants to know it,
Administratively, and this, I guess every program's different. I want to kind of nerd out on this stuff. And this is like logistics and other stuff that maybe your football ops or somebody else handles. But do you already know you have transportation already to and from stadium site, hotel, conference center, all of that stuff when you travel on the road or when you're staying in town for the season? Is all of that already ironed out and worked out?
Oh, Lord, yeah. So for me, and y'all, we've talked about me, I was so obsessed with everything being the same.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, and my guys knew, don't ever run out of food. Who's staying with who? Now, that changes who's staying with who. What is the hotel? And my ops guy has flown to that site, even if we've been there before. He's flown to every site. He's talked to the chef. He's talked to everybody. Security, where are we doing walkthroughs? How long does it take us to get to the stadium?
Where are the cameras?
Everything. Like I get to Marshall, where we're going to do a walkthrough. There's a camera up in the corner. First thing, my jacket goes up on top of that camera. Oh, Coach, it's off. I said, okay, good. My jacket is staying right there.
Here's a can of spray paint.
Yeah.
It's off now.
I mean, that's a fact.
Right.
I mean, but all those things I want to know. Where are we doing everything, and it's got to be perfect.
All right, uniforms, I'm guessing that's already in the books. You know what you're going to wear, maybe some.
To a degree. I mean, no, we would kind of, uniforms could change. That would be something the equipment guy would present to me because he knew how I was if we're going to make some changes and do something special.
Staff apparel for game day, is that done?
That's really already done. Yeah, you've ordered all that stuff in the off season, yeah. And I've gone through catalogs. That's really done in the January, February.
Yeah.
Scripting for an opponent, I guess it depends on who you open with, but you got a big opponent. Is offensive? Is Bryant Vincent? Does he already have plays scripted, or are you not going?
Yeah, we probably need to have a whole show on this, but those what we would do. I would want to study. We would have a week for our big opponents because we do off season study. But then I would take we got 7 weeks in the summer. We'd take and we would go in reverse order. where the last team we were looking at is the team we were playing first. And if it was a big game, and I've told this story on Georgia, I didn't spend a lot of time on Georgia. And, of course, our score indicated I did not spend a lot of time on them. But we had Jack
Mike
State.
Griffith reminds us every Tuesday how bad UAB played that game.
We had Jack State 1. I had North Texas 3. I had Tulane coming up, and we beat all those teams.
Yes.
So that's where my time went.
Take that, Mike.
Yeah, whoever you're talking about. I guess he's some Georgia fan. Do I need to tell them what they spent on all their players? I guess that don't matter.
No,
before legalities. I don't guess they care.
I think he
No,
knows.
I want to hear it.
I think he
You
knows.
can't tease us.
And
with
they
that.
don't care.
I think he knows. Donahue Chevrolet saw you pull into the parking lot in that very nice and clean vehicle.
Yeah, very clean. I've had it just cleaned up recently.
You should.
Are you shocked? by
Mama
that?
staying on you about cleaning it now, right?
Everybody, yeah.
I'm
I'm
amazed
getting it from
because
callers.
He lives at the ballpark,
I do live at the ballpark.
and
yeah.
so I just figured, but it is now turf, so you don't have to worry about
True,
getting dirt
true.
on that.
Just getting the
Donahue.
pebbles in there.
That's right.
Yes, but no, Donahue, we appreciate them, and I probably don't give Donahue talk about them enough. Just all my years with those guys when we were at UAB and how well they treat us. Chris Donahue, the whole staff there is just great. They're going to treat you great, and they've got a great product. Multiple cars, but specifically Chevrolet and the Chevy Tahoe.
Also, Global Canine Protection Group. We're talking about being at ballparks and stadiums and political events. Global Canine Protection Group, right here, homegrown in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, out of the Auburn Opelika area, veterans, and they've got their canines at airports and games, NFL,
Shopping malls.
yeah, all the above, and they're that's what you want: safe, secure, and veteran owned.
We need to get one of the canines on the show. Right?
Sure,
We all love dogs.
yeah, I agree.
That'd be great.
Let's work on that.
Let's get a professional in here.
Interview.
Yeah, that's right. We'll step out for that interview.
Yeah.
All right, Coach, in our remaining time here on the Bill Clark Show, presented by Buffalo Rock and Dr. Pepper, just take us through the mindset. Now is it a family time for you in regards to you as a head coach? You got spring in your rearview mirror. You just mentioned all the things that you've got to look forward to for the summer months and things of that nature. But is this the time that you can sneak away with the family?
There's a little window between the end of May and 1st of June when they come back. That was when I would try, because I wanted to be around. We had recruiting. Now, this was prior to the portal.
Right.
There would be no way to go right now. But I was usually around. We would have spring meetings. We would meet in Destin, where you're talking about a crazy time. Now, that's another good story. You're sitting around with all these head coaches in these spring meetings, and you're going to play each other and playing golf and all the things that everybody does. So that's coming up. You got that. So you're really just kind of looking at roster, who's coming in. We're getting ready for our freshmen to come in the summer, making sure they're going to have great. Big thing, are they finishing up academically? So you're trying to make sure you're staying on them. We're checking on them. And we're getting ready for summer school. Where are we academically? We forget there's academics, we're worried about and concerned about. And I know that doesn't seem to be talked about much anymore, but yeah, that's all part of it.
I was gonna make reference to Chapel Hill and what's going on there with Bill Belichick and that program. I wonder if this becomes a trend.
Yeah, you're talking about the girlfriend and
Yeah,
all the above.
publicist, influencer, good for the social media.
There's something here that I'm sure I missed on today.
No. It's just I thought it was interesting that a Hall of Fame coach, who is so maniacal about having.
The details.
It's about to use another phrase, and that wouldn't sound good.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't because
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same
Anyways,
thing.
do you have any thoughts on the circus that is what's going on with the North Carolina football
It's
program
very
right now?
interesting.
Yes, it is.
To be somebody who is as detail oriented.
Doesn't worry. He would never hear of distractions when
Right.
he was at New England, but now his girlfriend appears to be the biggest distraction in the program's history.
Yeah, very interesting. And to be the guy that was totally the other way. Yeah, I find that very interesting and funny.
It is funny, at the very least.
Have you ever seen a mermaid?
A mermaid?
Yeah.
In real life?
No,
No, never have.
They did a picture. I don't know if you saw those pictures
No.
from the beach.
Yeah, Landrum.
Coach, we got to show you.
She's a mermaid?
She dresses up as a mermaid.
Coach Belichick was with her during this?
Oh, he's playing
Yeah.
into the bit.
No, yeah, he's
Oh,
wearing
yeah.
like a Gordon's fisherman
No.
outfit. Oh yeah, it's like
Yeah.
he's selling
I
fish
did see
sticks.
that, yes.
Yes.
When was the last time you had a good fish stick?
It's been a while. I'm not
been
a big,
a while.
I'm not
a big fish stick guy?
What about a veggie stick? They used to serve those in
Now
lunchrooms
my
at school.
grandkids have some veggie sticks.
Veggie sticks?
Yes.
They're not that bad.
No,
All right.
That's how you fool them into eating vegetables, right?
that's right.
I'm being told we got to shut up.
All right.
So we're going to be quiet now and go away for a week. But hey, thanks for tuning us in. This is the Bill Clark Show presented by Dr. Pepper and Buffalo Rock. Have a great week, everyone.
This has been the Bill Clark Show, presented by Dr. Pepper.